Welcome, everybody. Blessed are those that visit this channel and enjoy the content here.
Along those lines, though, actually, since you segued into the ESL stuff, I have actually a question along these lines, which is, this just shows again, like I'll always totally admit when in areas I have deficiencies, there are certain areas. It's funny that people see me as like the super cynical person. It's like, part of the reason I had to develop that is I am naturally actually quite a naive person. Like I actually, because I'm a loyal person myself, I am very trusting of other people. If I don't sort of like put the blinkers on, I don't think like, what's their track record? Like what could they act? If I don't do that, I'll be the mark otherwise. So I'll give you an example where I've realized I'm the mark yet again. This is the 2022 version. So I thought this is what was happening with the virtue signaling a few years ago. So the Neon deal's a classic example. I thought, right, here's what's going to happen. All that talent, bloody idiots, aren't they? Because look, whereas me and you might say that and actually mean it, like, I really won't work with these people. You guys never really meant it, and I knew you didn't back then. What you meant back then was, look, as long as it's like fairly safe, I'm willing to sort of trade like this event to sort of like get off some of my views and show like, essentially like flex like I'm a cool person. That's like the generous reading of what a lot of them wanted to do, right? I just want to show that like I care about this topic, and it's only one event, isn't it? And then the joke obviously is, no, now it's the whole circuit. It's like, well, and so the problem in that scenario is I naively thought here were the two outcomes. Either one, they would have to admit I was wrong, I shouldn't have said that, can I please work? So I was immediately naive that I thought the company would never give a fuck about whether you said that to work with them. The joke is they don't. In fact, the second you work for them, they don't need you to disavow it. You've already worked for them. Your words mean fucking nothing. That's the genius in it. And then the other angle is I naively thought, well, people will hold them accountable, won't they? If you said that, everyone's not just going to let them do it. Well, all you need to know is this, without naming names, guys, because you can use Google like I can, we just had the Blast World Final that was in Abu Dhabi, and you can go and look up, and there are literally people who worked that event who said they would not work with Blast if Blast continued the Neon partnership. By the way, partnership way less than like going to the country of the things you're talking about. Well, this is technically a country side by side, but spoiler, that region has all the same problems, just it's differing. It's almost like we do this a little bit more, we do the story a little bit more, we just put them in jail. Like, none of it's good, put it that way. So in this scenario, like, and similar with IM Rio, people who said things about Neon magically worked at IM Rio for the ESL company that, as you say, is having it. So essentially, like, as far as I can tell, this is what you can hit me with it if it's true. As far as I can tell, this actually is what's just going to play out like this again and again and again. Like, actually, I think the way I'm the mark is this, Richard. It's not that now that this has happened, they're going to go, whoa, we better actually like slow down the speed limit on like this virtue signaling because it could get out of control. As far as I can tell, they're going to all still do it. They're going to do the same exact flexes. They're then going to work with the companies when those companies come in and buy up the esports. And it's just going to be both. They are going to have their cake and eat it, if you know what I mean.
Well, so look, I extend grace on the Neon point because while some people did get into the specifics and did put themselves in impossible positions that they couldn't then later stand by and take certain money, and trust me, it's been very humbling for those people. Like, I talked to Frankie about it. I know you've done content around it. I know you've said. I mean, like, it's been a very humbling experience for her. And like, I don't know if I'm getting soft in my old age. I don't. I want people to, genuinely lead happy lives and just your values. Like, you know what I mean. Like, you've got to be at peace with where or not you break the rules you've set yourself.
Sure.
And it can create a lot of cognitive dissonance, and it's very unpleasant when you have to look yourself in the mirror and think, these things I care about, the priority line has shifted now that I'm a parent or whatever it is, or as I've got older, or as I'm staring at the abyss of, retirement or irrelevancy, or, very few people have values that are completely set in stone and can never be tested. And that isn't even to say I'm one of them or you're one of them, because that makes you sound like super cool or something. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I believe in my values enough that so far they haven't been tested sufficiently to the point where I would be willing to deviate from one. But if there were a different set of circumstances, who knows what I would do? So I give everyone that benefit of the doubt. I'll also, on the Neom deal, give the added grace that Neom is a very specific thing, where in real time, at that moment, land was being taken from indigenous people with a genuine claim to that land, and there'd been with a shootout with Saudi security forces that was very contested. A lot of people say that the head of the tribe that was in the dispute with the Saudi Arabian government didn't carry a gun. They claim not only did he carry one, which was suspiciously found at the scene, he drew it on them and they had to kill him. Now, you know, that's the real-time theft of land from an indigenous group. Now, I know a lot of people didn't object on those reasons, but if you didn't say you didn't, you can say that's what tipped you over the edge.
That could be, that's a plausible deniability, exactly. Yeah.
That's the out, okay? So I'll give grace on that one.
Sure.
But the reality is this, you know, I don't think the virtue signaling is necessarily going to stop. I did a lot of tweets recently about it. You know, Team Liquid just wrapped themselves up in knots, you know, repeatedly with this stuff. You know, on the one hand, you've got the founder and CEO publicly saying, you know, we're in Texas, but it's outrageous what the American government is doing for LGBTQ plus people and the trans community and for women, and we will absolutely do our part to help. And then obviously you've competed in ESL events. You're actually a business partner of the Savvy Gaming Group. So by extension, all the money that comes through that, you know, relationship is tainted. You were happy to compete in the United Arab Emirates with Blast. And so, you know, they gave a little bit of money. They gave a little bit of money, didn't they? They said, we're going to give $22,000 and we'll give 50%, crucially, of the org's share of the prize money. And hopefully that makes up for it, which is kind of like saying to those marginalized communities, will you shut the fuck up if we pay you? So,
yeah, the joke is like, here's your cut.
Worse, you know?
Yeah, it's like, here's your cut.
Of the evil. And so, and what's interesting is I saw people from those communities going, hey, speaking as a gay gamer,
yes,
you know, I'm happy to take the money. Maybe we can synthesize that blood money into doing some good. And it's like, okay, if you think that it can do that, sure. I mean, that's a philosophical question. You know, I saw many others who said no, and this was really embarrassing for Team Liquid, and silence would have been a much preferential stance. But the bottom line is this, you know, to because of all the things I'm talking about with politics essentially becoming another branch of the entertainment industry, if you're an American organization, particularly if you're an American player, an American influencer, you absolutely have to talk about the harrowing evil that Republicans perpetrate every day. And yes, I'm being facetious, but I will also add, I wouldn't call myself a Republican by any stripe, you know. I don't like a lot of their policies, don't like a lot of things that they've done, don't like shit that's gone on at the Supreme Court, got all my own opinions about that stuff. But at the end of the day, that's what you have to do if you're American. You can't not do that, because that's sponsors will literally ask, why haven't you tweeted about this issue? What's your thought on this? Why haven't you posted your rainbow flag during Pride Month? And they get nervous. They're going to withdraw their budget if you don't engage in what is now the normal means of doing business in America. All this, or anyone, another idiot, another way you can spot an idiot. Anyone who says go woke, go broke, just because it rhymes is a moron. These companies don't go broke. So you can come up with some instances where they've said something that was so beyond the pale, they get boycotted into oblivion. But if you go look at, like, you know, all the morons that went out and bought Kaepernick edition Nikes and set them on
they
fire.
made loads of money, yeah.
And you look at the next quarter,
yes,
their financials, absolutely a big W for them. That hugely successful advertising campaign, and suddenly it was okay to like Nike again. Guess we'll forget about all that sweatshop labor. It was back, you know. This is another reason why they do it. You know, you put out, these are the issues we care about, front and center, and then you don't have to look into how our stuff's manufactured. You don't want to know where we get our minerals from. Spoiler, literal children dying in mines in Africa to get you those minerals. You don't want to know about the Nigerian government doing corrupt deals with China and all the horrible conditions that their workforce goes in. You don't want to know about that, right? So here you go. You don't have to think about it, because here it is. Here's all the good issues. Here's all the things that we do that are righteous. And you put that front and center. That is how an American company does business now. So you can't not do it as an esports org. Of course you can't. But the reality is if you then do something that is so optically terrible that the values are here, and then you go, right, yep, anyway, so hope you all enjoyed that little pride charity event we did. We're off to Saudi Arabia now. Let it go liquid. People are going to go, hey, what up? You going where? You going where? And then they're going to have to say something about it. They're going to, and the problem is no one's making money in esports still. They keep lying about it. No one's making money in esports. Team Liquid can't just pull out. They should. They absolutely should, because what they're doing is completely separated from their values, but they won't. And you know why they won't? Because they sit down in a meeting and they go, well, Formula One's doing it. Golf's doing it.
Of course, yeah.
We just had a World Cup in Qatar, didn't we? Disney airbrushes black people out of their posters for a Chinese market. It's all fine. It's all good. Corporations, man. So what are we? We're just a drop in the bucket. It's like when you give yourself permission to do something bad, just on a bigger level. This little bit of evil's not really making the world a worse place, is it? It's okay to just steal this money. No one really cares. So that's what they're doing on a bigger level right now. So the virtue signaling's not going to stop, because that's how American marketed entities, particularly in the entertainment industries, that's how they make money. Now, but like, not all of it's virtue signaling either, by the way. Some companies really do walk the walk as much as you possibly can. There's just a broader discussion to have about can you even operate in a righteous way in such a diseased world, when we're also reliant on money, and money is only pooled by very negative entities, very negative influence. Well, maybe there's no. I mean, I know Monty's arrived at that conclusion. He says there's no such thing as a clean dollar. He's probably right. I still don't want to take one, but whatever.
No, I think that is the sentiment in the industry. So along those lines, then the follow-up I have is this. Because again, like, luckily from having some perspective of being in the industry a while, I can see where things are going. Like, everyone acts like, right, well, that's okay. Yeah, the Saudis bought ESL. Like, the joke here is, by the way, the people in League of Legends are like, whew, at least we skipped it though, right? LEC's okay. It's like, first of all, there's the whole China thing, but let's not have that discussion, shall we? Then there's the right, you know what I mean? You know how that... Well,
I haven't heard anyone talk about the Uyghur Muslims in months.
Never brought it up ever, have they? So the thing I would ask is this. To me, if anything, that is just a signpost, like you say about the industry. That's just where it's going to go. Like, the joke is they're going to own everything. They are going to have... They're going to buy the teams next in other countries. And I even think, by the way, eventually, if esports is smart, by the way, since there's not much money in it, this would even be the playbook, cynically, you'd do. You'd even go, like my old joke years ago about that you should get these people. My joke was because it was money laundering back then. Now it is just like the way that you buy influence in the world. The joke is other countries and regimes should buy in and buy an LEC's team and buy a fucking tournament operator. It's a brilliant way to get the pass, essentially. So as far as I can tell, isn't the cognitive dissonance just going to ramp up? And eventually we are going to live in a world where everyone's still saying all the right things and all the right banners, but every event's going to be in this Middle Eastern country with this Chinese thing.
Yeah.
It's going to just go to almost 100%, right?
No, but so all you just have to accept now. You can't work in esports and not be. I don't want to use the word complicity. I don't like that. I don't. It's like when people say silence is complicity. It's like, yeah, there is an aspect that's true. Like, all it takes for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing and all of that jazz. But equally, you're not really complicit, are you? You're not really complicit. You're just taking money from the entity that does it, but you would never agree or sign off. Like, if they handed you the paycheck and went, now, remember the rules. You have to come in on Wednesday and do a beheading.
Sure, of course.
Right? You wouldn't take the check then, right? So it's tough. The bottom line is this: there's no way to work in esports now and avoid the dirty money. It's either coming from, as I've talked about, it's either coming from dodgy websites. It's coming from dodgy governments. Dodgy is being very nice about it. It's coming from entities that just have no place advertising around children. Like the US Air Force. Are you fucking serious? Like, you know what I mean? I can't advertise alcohol or cigarettes to fucking kids. but I can advertise fucking come and get your legs blown off in a war next to a fucking pit of chemicals that's going to give you debilitating diseases and cancers for the rest of your life. And spoiler, we snatch the pension out from under you the moment you try to claim it. So I don't think that's a very healthy thing to advertise to children, but there we are. And also, by the way, the quantum state of being you have to exist in. Putin is a madman, and Russia have invaded a sovereign nation. Now, here is the US government, still never atoned for the war crimes committed in Iraq and Afghanistan. God bless them. Sign up today. Go to www.fuckingwarcriminals.com and fill in the form. Like, how do you operate in a world so insane? So there's no way to operate. The best thing to do, unfortunately, if you want to work in esports, and Frankie learnt this the hard way, and I've had other friends learn it the hard way, and I think people are starting to learn the hard way. If you want to work in esports, understand what you are working with and what you will be doing and what it's all for and what the goals are. And if you still want to continue to do that, just shut the fuck up, never talk about anything ever again, because if you ever want to present yourself as righteous, you cannot work in this industry and be righteous, or rather the type of work that you're doing. Like for me, I'm not even in esports now. I am like tangential to it. I am on the sidelines, like looking over in disgust. I don't work events anymore. Who could I work for, right? Who could I work for and cash the check and say what I'm saying to you now? I couldn't. I'd be exactly like everybody else. I would have to come out, do the mea culpa. I'm sorry, guys. I just need the money. I'm so washed up. I'll put a fucking bullet in my head. Like if the bank account ever gets to zero and there is just no money coming in, it's just fucking all right. Lights out. Like fine. But like at the end of the day, I'm letting so much money slip through my fingers to have this stance, but I don't begrudge anybody like that I know for taking it, because more often than not, the people who are taking it sort of understand what I'm saying, that it's not great money to take. You've got to, but you have to set your own rules.
Yes.
You have to set your own rules. You can't live by the rules of the internet. You can't live by the rules of fucking randoms that are in your DMs. You can't live by the rules of groups that you really want to be well liked by, but then you have to immediately go and fucking let them down because you need the money. Your rules, that's what you have to live by, and only you can be okay with it. So yeah, I mean, just if you work in esports, particularly on broadcasts, if you're a caster, if you're a host, if you're an analyst, you know, if you're a player, if you're an org, you're going to be going to these countries that do these things. You know, you're going to have to show moral cowardice, and it's going to be very apparent when you do. So just make it easy on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, one of the areas that I wanted to talk specifically, like I said earlier, about Games Journalist Vietnam is there's even an area, my perspective has totally changed on that over the years through my own experiences in a similar vein, which is right back then. Like, first of all, just to get to the crux of that whole issue and where I stand on it, it's a pretty simple scenario. It's not, by the way, my old take before, which was obviously I was on one side to some degree, which was I used to think like the thing that annoyed me was a lot of it was distraction for corrupt journalistic behaviour. And that essentially, to me, I'm sorry, that is the kernel of the most important aspect of that entire event. It's, as you said, that even games journalism had been infected by this approach where people collude behind the scenes, even coerce each other, and essentially create a consensus that they are not being genuine and transparent about creating. They're pretending that essentially a very diverse group of people, in terms of they're all different, work for different people, all magically arrive at the same thing, which is supposed to make you, the viewer, think that must just be the only right opinion. That's the obvious game, right? Now, that
manufacturing consensus.
Yeah. Now that obviously the genius of the way they did get that genie back in the bottle is no one does remember that detail because it's surrounded by this toxic, and I use that term actually specifically now, this toxic atmosphere that was about the idea of like, so do you agree with harassing women? Not even just journalists, just women. It was just that angle, and obviously on the surface, that's the easiest thing ever for someone to go, well, of course not. Whoa, whoever's on that side, they're the evil one. You know, it's just, it was such a clever misdirection. But essentially, that latter part, by the way, the idea of harassment, that's the part my perspective has changed on a lot, Richard. Like, I have to say, part of it was think about my own perspective. At the time this stuff happened, I might have had, I'm going to say like 15k Twitter followers. Yeah. Maybe years later, I had 50k. Now, one thing I learned about Twitter, which is very hard to understand, unfortunately, if you've never been in this position, is it doesn't scale in a linear fashion, and the way people use Twitter has changed. So I always say famously, back in the day, when you had Twitter followers, like you really did just follow the people you follow, and then people who follow you, right, mark on you. It was like a little tiny tribe, because back then the algorithm wasn't that good. No one used the main page anyway. You use your own feed, didn't you? Like that was the way you did it. Whereas now it really is a thing of like, I'm going to consume. It's almost like the whole I'll see what is on Netflix today. Like you go there, the algorithm throws some things up. If it's the right outrage, you click on that, you get in. And so the joke now is, of course you offend people, because if anyone in the world's offended, they will be served your tweet to get offended, and there will always be outrage. There will always be. So one thing I had to learn the hard way from some of these experiences is I used to think the same exact things a lot of the idiots I complain about say. Like I would also think, Richard, wow, this guy just blocked me immediately when I made a good point. Bloody coward. He can't even defend his position because I only had a tiny following. So I had, the 8 interactions a day that could make that seem like a reasonable statement. Another one is, I know this is something you've said something similar about publicly yourself. I used to think back in the day, well, fuck it. They're all putting me on blast. I'll put them on blast with our followers. Quote tweet it is, motherfucker. There you go. Yeah. Oh, you thought it was funny when you were just dissing me when no one was seeing what you were saying. Let's see what our followers think. And I had to learn, look, I don't go as far as thinking that, again, that's like some Pearl Harbor level shit. Like, oh my God. But at the same time, I know that almost no human brain can handle like thousands of inputs. And especially not when they're all telling you, like, fuck you, you can't, you're wrong. In fact, you know what? I'm not even listening to what you're saying. The guy I like says you're wrong. So like that aspect of that thing, I can see, even though they did exaggerate it like it was Vietnam, I can see how that does have like traumatic elements, that does have triggering elements, that has things that do psychological damage to you. So I wanted you to talk a little bit on this angle, because I know you've also come to like a different position on that thing. It's not as simple as like, to me, Twitter, I had the ethos of the old internet. It's like, it's the Wild West, you come in here, it's the arena, you battle, you have your enemies, you have your fights, you talk about, but actually, once it becomes this thing where it takes a personal or psychological toll, it did become something very different to me. So what are your thoughts on some of these things?
Yeah, so I think first of all as well, I mean, like generally the type of people who say things like, he's blocked me, he's a coward. It's like, dude, you're not changing my mind because you're not saying anything original to begin with. It's like, it's just garbage. So I'm just filtering it out. It's not like, we're not equals. We're not having a debate, mate. You're a moron. You've just said something that has been like if you just even looked at the tweet, there's another 50 morons saying the same thing, but you think you're the guy that's discovered fucking fire in this intellectual Titanic battle. The Frost Nixon at Twitter, like, grow the fuck up, like, you're blocked, like, you're a moron. I'll never need to talk to another moron in my life as long as I live, but unfortunately, I will never have the luxury of not having to talk to a moron. So, like, people like that are just so, like, over-invested in trying to prove their own, like, intellectual efficacy that you can just remove them from your life immediately. Whereas I've got loads of people on Twitter who actually do disagree with me, but disagree in such an interesting way. You go, oh, yeah, all right. I was like you and I, people always think we're fucking like completely like, if you took out my brain and put it in your head, all our thoughts would completely tessellate, just overlap perfectly, right? But it isn't like that. But like, for example, it's a silly little thing, really, not relevant to what we're talking about. But when you did your video on the best of 5 thing and why best of 5 is actually a legit and a good, you almost swayed me. I was capable of being persuaded on an issue I thought I'd made my mind up about, right? You didn't. You almost got there.
Okay.
But that, and I think that's important that you do keep your mind open to inquiry. Sure. But somebody just coming in and just it's like trying to do a comedy routine with just a heckler in the room, just shouting "Freebird." If I have you removed, it's not because I can't handle your incredible back and forth and witty banter. It's that you're a cunt and you're ruining what I want to do, which is actually use a platform for discussion to engage with people who want to discuss things. So there's that. The other thing I'll say is, I've realized that like there's an anthropological thing going on with social media. I genuinely think our fucking ape brain, our primitive brain, is still not used to the concept of having to effectively input the considerations of more than like, I don't know, 50 people.
Yes.
Like, think about how we used to like tribe up, right? And we'd be running around, and it's like, you know, there's me, there's Ugg, there's Ugg, Thug, and Tug, right? And you know, they're the fellow warriors, so I got to stay strong around them. I know that, right? Like, can't show any weakness, or that'll be a thing. Then there's obviously, you know, the Som and Bomb, and they're the ladies of the tribe, the ones that are looking for prospective mates. So I better keep my shit trim, better keep my fucking drip nice, you know, all the best loincloths, you know, blah blah. And need to think about essentially having a prospective mate because I have this like weird urge to fucking procreate that I can't quite explain in my simple brain. We all live in a tribe and everyone knows what they're doing and we all know what everyone's thinking. And they're like the familial unit, the nuclear family. It's not so far removed from those like ancient times. You have a group of people that you are required to care about their opinions. When you're a kid, it's your classmates, schoolmates, your friends, your teachers, your parents. When you get a little bit older, it's the friends that you've retained from that group, plus the new friends you're meeting as you emerge and flourish into adulthood, your family to a lesser extent, and then, you know, like relationships and whatever it might be. The bottom line is, though, at no point in history was that ever like 10,000 people. You didn't walk into a room, right, guys? Yes. I need feedback, and 10,000 voices rang out, right? You know, that was never a thing. And back in the day, if you were a celebrity and you had a big following, if people wanted to criticize you, they either had to turn up to where you were working, right, and shout and heckle, and who got time for that, or they had to write a letter. Had to sit down and write it all down. Dear Richard, I think you are a cunt because when you said NIP are a shit org, I really like NIP. You're going to have to write it all down, lick the envelope, go to a mailbox, send it in. It's going to come through. It's going to be pre-screened by somebody. It's going to get to me. I'm going to read it, chuckle, fucking fold it up and throw it in the bin. It's not going to cause any harm. Now, unfortunately, the problem you've got is we have to deal with an extraordinary amount of input, not even, as you rightly point out, just from people we have curated to provide that input by virtue of following them on Twitter, but the way Twitter works is it's almost like a neural network or something where it's like anybody sees your tweet, anybody can give you a real-time reaction to it. And the problem there is like the reactions by and large don't hurt my feelings, so I'm still a little bit like, yeah, that's not harm, grow up. It's what comes with it. It's the shit that goes in your DMs. It's having to stay up all night because someone's trying to hack your emails, hack your Twitter, hack your fucking Facebook, you know, whatever it is. It's people trying to dox you. It's people threatening you. It's people then seeing that you're the bad guy today, and then they go after people you care about. Dude, I haven't been able to talk about any person in my life publicly for about 10 years, you know. I mean, like, with the exception of Maria when we lived together. And by the way, you know, people ever want to know how bad it can get, understand that while I was at my lowest ebb, borderline fucking suicidal, I remember you tweeting this. I did a story, I think, about NIP. I was trying to, like, slowly and steadily getting back on the horse. I did a story about NIP, and an NIP fan who was a grown man, a teacher that worked with children, said because I had written hateful things about NIP, I needed to be investigated immediately for the murder of my best friend who I just loved with all my fucking heart, and publicly put that out into the world. Now, what am I meant to do with that? What am I meant to do with the reaction to that? What am I meant to do with people saying that and thinking that about me? Am I meant to just metabolize that without there being any negative effect? And then you have to realize that nobody ever fucking gave me the benefit of the doubt for anything controversial I've ever said or anything contentious. I don't think I'm a controversial figure. People line up around the block to spit in my face digitally and to fucking say the most outrageous, hurtful things. So, you know, obviously there's no getting away from that. The psychological impact that takes on you. Like, it made me laugh. Somebody on the Four Horsemen podcast, they put a comment saying, Richard seems a little bit bitter these days. I couldn't like.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, imagine what it's like to know in your heart that you've always had the purest of intentions for an industry, to give all the best years of your life as an adult to it, for multiple generations, because fans grow up and they move on, and to lose everything that you ever sort of cared about along the way, and the only thing you have left is that, well, surely someone will at least respect my work, and just every day, just hate, abuse, lies being told about you, the same 5 lies told about you over and over and over and over and over. No matter how many times you correct those lies, no one cares. The same fucking lie. Just imagine what that would do to your brain. Imagine how that would make you feel. I don't need a fucking attaboy, from anybody. I don't need a Richard Lewis appreciation thread, that they make for like people who do like outrageously bad shit like config, everyone's sucking config off again. Like just a drunken arsehole at events who like just literally gets into violent fucking, or intimated violent altercations with people. Me, I act in self-defense once. That's all I hear about for 7 fucking years. And it's like, imagine what that would do to your brain. Yes. Oh yeah. It's so, it's happened to me now multiple times when I've been the villain of the day, and the things that have been said and done to me, like when you've got fucking Reddit moderators doing like creating like or finding burner accounts to fake look and then editing comments to make it look like I fucking pushed someone into suicide, then sharing that with a notorious harassment subreddit to the point where me and my girlfriend have to leave our house because someone has found out her name and is saying they will come to the house, murder me and rape her. Well, what do you want me to say about the internet, guys? Great place. No, I'm sorry. I fucking hate the people who did that. I hate the people who fucking are in my DMs harassing me. I hate that. That the community, I think I've been pretty good and diligently served. Can't find anything good to say about me. Yeah. Oh yeah, bitter. Bitter doesn't come close.
Along these lines, actually, I had a scenario I wanted to present to you, because when I've thought about this topic, because particularly a thing that was being shared between me and you in terms of how like fans, I say fans, they shouldn't even be called fans, like I say. Some of these aren't even people from esports, they're just people on the internet who find you and you become target of their whatever the fuck's going on in their life, which sadly, because I can't see, I can't then even account for. Like, if I actually knew this idiot just had a bad day at work, I probably wouldn't take it that seriously, but the problem is all I'm getting in my brain is something about me with my fucking name, my birth name, and things about my life. Like, so unsurprisingly, yeah, that can be quite vital to me. It's not just some throwaway comment. The thing I've got the vibe of, and it's really sad because people are going to laugh and go, yeah, but you are all old, etc. Like, that doesn't even apply, right? Basically, the vibe I get, Richard, is we've become, to the Zoomer generation in esports, the crazy old man who lives at the edge of town. And since he's crazy anyway, notice we've just implied that on him, then it's just funny if we all go by and smash his windows and throw a fucking stone at his dog and that. And if he goes mad, he's just a silly, crazy old guy. Because I get that vibe about the way they behave on Twitter. It reminds me of like the school behaviour where people will pick one kid and they just mildly fuck with that kid every day. Needle him, to comments out your dick small. And then the joke is, in the movie, that kid goes mental one day and you're like fucking gouges someone's eye out, and then they all go, whoa, he was crazy, man, what the hell? And they act like it's out of nowhere, like, wow, out of left field, can you believe that? Like, that's almost like this fucking way people are engaging with us. And dude, that's really fucked up. Like the obvious example people might know is that stupid like block speed run percentage or whatever. It's like, so now you're only here to harass me. Like, there's not even dialogue now. You're not even here to disagree with me. You're just here to irritate me till I press a button. Like, what is this game? This is like some fucked up shit version of Squid Game or something, like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that regard, it's like, I don't really mind that so much. I mean, my DM's open because of the type of work I do. And, I just read, like, just outrageous shit every day. You got to check them. Gotta check them. Could be someone who needs help, right? You know, so could be someone who needs to chase down some money. Could be someone who's in a bad situation. Could be someone who's been Me Too'd and wants to talk to an adult about it. Could be someone vulnerable. So I gotta go in there every day and read every day the DMs. And of course, it's like the most vile, fucking outrageous shit being said about you. People who, you know, want to poke any very open wounds. I mean, one of the worst things, you know, that that you can even imagine, you know, happen to me, and that's not even off limits. That's not even off limits. You know, like, so you know, so like it's not, you know, I always try and remember that people experience the internet like completely subjectively. So when they come and harass you, they don't know they're number 50.
Yes, that is a good point.
They don't know
it's
their
death
number
by a
100.
thousand cuts. Yeah.
Yeah, and what always ends up happening is some guy that's something relatively minor is customer number 1,000, and they win the lucky ticket of a reply where I call them a cunt, and then people go, "That's not very mature. Aren't you a professor these days? Oh, I better get him fired. Makes you wonder what he would do around his students, doesn't it? Yeah, actually, yeah, really bad. But he's probably a bad human being. Actually, yeah. I'm going to report him to the authorities at FBI for calling someone a cunt. You know, like just and there's just no way to win. It's like I say, you could be the best boxer in the world. If you had to fight 1,000 people in a row, just amateurs, you're gonna get got. There's no way to win. You either pander all the time or just don't engage. And basically where I'm at now is I use Twitter very sparingly.
I wanted to ask about this, by the way, specifically, because I've noticed, just in general, if I actually look at like your demeanor of it, it's funny, I'll actually go the opposite way to the other guy. Like, look, I agree. If you go and watch the prime numbers series, we are all talking mad, like soft spoken, and which, it's esports. But that is the real, like, if you want to see the damage done, that's what you really go and look at. Yeah. But I agree. Like, obviously, we're quite bitter because of just experiences on Twitter stuff. But I actually think this last year or so, mate, I feel like you've started to turn the tide back, though. Like, you seem like you're way more at peace with a lot of it. I want to ask, have you got an approach to Twitter that you've changed in some way? Like, for example, I do notice you are very good now at sort of never getting into those big drama bombs in the same way. No, it feels like now you only do it when it's relevant to work, if you know what I mean.
It's not a good thing. I just don't really care. I mean, like, you know, I've just come to. I'm definitely at peace. I'm at peace that, because, you know, the last few years were a bit of a rankle. You know, I was in a good place, like 2018, 2019, like career wise, I think. I'd had a bit of I took my first real L with a startup. You know, but that's fine. You know, I built up so many good things down the years, like, and, you know, I made a lot of money off it. And I was living in Vegas, and like I said, when Maria passed away, that was just like, you know, like I died too. Like, the guy, you know, he doesn't exist anymore. He just doesn't. Because that was the timeline I was meant to be going down. That was absolutely certain. Doesn't exist. So, you know, whatever. And I went through a real tough time. I definitely had probably like a psychotic break or something. Like, I you know, I was fucking out there. I was popping pills and drinking and not sleeping, and reality. I can't even give you a definitive timeline of how I even got out of America. You know, there was somewhere along there, the pandemic happened. I was very isolated. I was in Vegas. You know, we were doing lockdown. You know, you would go out in Vegas, and when there was no tourists around it, you know, like, you go, the strip's dead as fuck. It's like being in a zombie game. And you know, so I was going through all of that, and I was in talks with another company, and they'd completely sold me a fugazi. They'd completely lied. And they'd withdrawn. So, you know, I lost my best friend. I lost my visa to stay in America. I had no job. I'm in a pandemic. I've got 60 days to get out of America. Somehow get all my stuff out of this fucking 5-bedroom mansion in Vegas to whatever house I end up living in the UK. Can't even go house hunting, because if I leave, I can't get back into the country. So I was going through all of that, and like, it's like I say, man, that was what told me who my friends were. And I'll tell you, lots of people let me down in ways I couldn't really conceive of. You know, I had people messaging me like about really mundane things at that time. Like I had people messaging me like, "Oh, can you talk to Thorin and get him to unblock me on Twitter?"
There you go.
And that would be like the first time they'd talk to me, and it's like, I am like out of my mind in grief here. I have been awake for 3 days straight. I'm thinking about I'm literally thinking about killing myself. Not in an abstract way, not in a, I mean, you just turn the light, you know, not in like sort of almost romantic, as I can tolerate life as long as I know there's an off switch kind of way, right? Not like that. Like in the very dark, I would need to go here at this time, do this, do that. That would have the least impact on the people that find my body. Very, very, very detailed. And you know, and I'm just getting DMs from people who think so little of me. Like, what, I gotta, yeah, oh yeah, that's super important to me right now. I'll get right on that, guys. Thanks. And then obviously get back to the UK. I was pretending I was all right. I definitely wasn't all right. I look at the content I made at that time. I'm not looking after myself. I grew my hair out. It's all greasy and lank, unkempt. I'm not shaving. And I was just doing it to do something. And then sometime this year, it's like, right, well, you know, all the sick shit that you torture yourself with, I'm bored of torturing myself. I'm bored of self-flagellation. I've ultimately failed in every goal I ever wanted to achieve for the industry I've given my adult life to. It has still turned into this horror carnival of all the worst people that are going to feast on all of the vulnerable adults and their wallets, and maybe worse, because we are rapidly losing all the checks and balances because we're just another offshoot of the entertainment industry, and everything else be damned. My work is meaningless in a grand context. The only thing that I don't even really feel fucking pleasure anymore, if I'm just being real with you. Like, so when so I've just bottomed out. I'm just killing time. Like, you know, I can't. I know it sounds awful. I know it sounds so awful to just put it that bluntly. It's so dark, but I just don't care anymore. I just don't give a shit. You know, I don't like, and esports isn't going to be the thing that moves the dial. I needed people. I needed at the point before I got to this point, I just needed something. I just needed to know that it mattered. It could have come in any way, shape, or form. It could have come through any source. It could have been anything. You know, I needed to hear it, and I never did. In fact, what I got some of the worst harassment I've ever experienced on the internet during that time, from demented fan bases, and as we talked about earlier, people saying unconscionable things. So, you know, whatever. So the reason I don't get into it on Twitter anymore is because I just don't give a shit. Just have your awful little playground that you've all built for yourselves, and I'm, you know, on a long enough time scale, I'm not going to be there to fix it. I mean, I know I keep saying it and I keep coming back, but you know, I am scaling down operations. I think.
Let me ask you about that then, because obviously I intended to ask you this question at some point. So basically, part of the issue is everyone knows that people just saw the headline, which wasn't even correct, Esports News UK. That was not what he said technically. That's just your version of it, truncated for a headline and extra spiced up and sexy, which is like, I'm just retiring, and then that, like, as if that's it, right? And so obviously, yes.
When you retire, you just like, Shazam,
yeah, exactly.
Like, my work here is done, but you didn't do anything, Richard.
Yes, exactly. The vibe from all the Reddit type people is like, right, that means from that day he was never going to do another thing. Whereas you've made it more like, right, I'm going to wrap up these loose ends. So I wanted to ask you something along these lines, because you've said something earlier that I vibe with. It's what I actually say to people, which is I often say, but I'm actually not in the esports industry. Like, it's literally true, by the way, if people don't know. Who do I work for in the esports industry? I work for myself and with certain companies, and even some of them are tangentially connected to the esports industry. So what I say is, especially because I mean like the establishment of esports and what all those big companies and all the arseholes who win the awards, all those people. I'm nothing to do with those people. I'm friends with some of them, but I don't actually consider myself even someone who works there. What I'm doing now is I'm doing content I'm into, which by the way is the same content, but I've told people this before, either it'll be through this company, so it'll be like a traditional company, but I'll run it basically, and with other business people obviously, or if that doesn't work out and I decide I'm still interested in esports, I'll go the opposite direction. I'll scale way down and I'll become a hermit and I'll have a Substack and I'll have a tiny little paywalled community, and you will have to it'll be like trying to join a fucking Buddhist monastery if you want to get into this motherfucker. You don't just walk in the door. We vet you, we check you, you have to go through levels. It'd be like my Discord. I've done that sort of thing there. I've gone totally hardcore. So it'll be one of those too, but it won't be. I will never just be a guy who just works this big event and works for this site.
Hardcore on your Discord, by the way. The way you've called everyone a white name.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I know.
It's so fucking ridiculous. Yeah. It is insane.
It's because I'll totally admit what I've done with my Discord is in response to the fact that I can't control everything on Twitter. So it's like I am the god. I am the sort of like Gnostic demiurge of my own Discord, though, where I can, like you say, I can cast you out, I can create tribes, I can battle. Yeah, exactly. Oh, listen, there's a lot of self-indulgence going on there, of course. But what I was going to ask was this.
Healthy stuff, yeah.
So the question I ask is this. I'm implying, though, as long as I still have an interest for it, I'll still do some esports stuff, right? You've implied you were going to wrap up the big stories, the kids. If, say, whatever timeline you want, in a year, 2 years from now, if Richard Lewis sees something funny happen in esports or some news comes across his path, this company's doing this, would we still get like a streamed video? If you were doing a stream back then, would you make a video? Would you still put it out? How's that going to go? Is eventually all content going to not have the esports theme in at all? Will you put the odd thing out? What's the vibe?
Yeah, I don't know. I really can't say, because it's like, I had a couple of job interviews like recently, and it was to go back to writing about politics. So it's like, do I? By the way, talking about like being jaded with esports, I know a world where that'll cheer me up. The world of online politics. But I had 2 job interviews, and we basically were like, okay, I'll put that in my brain, and we'll see where we end up. There's lots of little things going on with that, because I always keep it real, and so there is a little aspect. The thing someone who's had an audience fears the most of all is like even though I don't give a shit and I'm probably like just rock bottom, the only thing that could hurt me more would be like if I woke up one day and no one gave a shit about anything I had to say. Sure. That point, why do you even exist, I guess? So that's terrifying. And so there's always an aspect of it where, and listen, I'm probably the only guy real enough to say that, but all your favorite broadcast talent feels the same way. Like, what happens when the applause stops? They've all got that anxiety. It's like I was saying earlier, it's why so many of them wade into these online battles. It's like, remember me. So for me, it's like, I want to do things I want to do at any given time. I believe I've earned the right. I certainly think I've earned the right to an opinion on esports. It's entirely possible there would be like a story big enough that it would warrant my attention. I know I keep saying it and keep teasing it. I'm getting like e-sick at this point. I am still going to write up the definitive history of match fixing in NA, and it is going to come out next year. I've already done loads of it. I've transcribed like probably about 100,000 words of interviews. It's like it's a lot of work. So it is going to get put out there. But 2 years down the line, 3 years, I mean, I just have to be confident enough that the community I've built are still going to come and watch whatever it is I do, because they fuck with me. It's not that I'm an esports person, but it's like, I'd be lying if I said it didn't rankle a little bit when like people say like, oh, you're washed, nobody wants you anymore. It's like, I could be doing these events right now. I could be like another one of those fucking guys that just lingers too long in the scene. That's meant to be for young people, taking all of the jobs, could spend some of the money, get some work done, get some fillers, get some hair plugs, get some light. Oh, I could do all of that. You know what I mean? And still be there and still take the gig. But I've made moral choices. But no one ever says, no one's ever going to credit you for that. people just say, "You're irrelevant. Thought you were retiring." And like you say, I never even said that. I said I was going to phase esports out of my life. I mean, and we don't do BTN anymore. That was a massive part of it because the prep and recording of that show was big. I didn't come in on this company with you because I said I didn't think it would be fair where I was mentally because I couldn't give my all to it. And you know, as we've talked about, again, keep it real. I've got some issues, you know, that I've talked about publicly, which is fine. And you know, maybe that changes. Maybe you know, because I still want to do the Four Horsemen. I think that has value. We only ever talk about big things on that show. So,
by the way, just as an aside, I even envision, if you're up for it, that could even be maybe your one esports thing you still do, because it would be it's a perfectly tailored vehicle for you to just come in every now and then and give your take.
Yeah, and obviously what I don't want to ever be is the guy that like doesn't really follow esports but talks about it. I don't want to end up being like a fucking unsuccessful Mark Cuban. I can think of nothing worse. So I mean, you know, yeah, I really can't say. All I know is I've definitely hit a point mentally where it's like I just care about my community. I just care about the people that have like supported me all this time. I care about the people that are there on every YouTube video leaving a positive comment. I care about the people that sit on the Discord and watch me lose my mind at 3 a.m. when the Raiders fucking lose again. I care about the people that like must honestly be giving up so much of their money, you know, to help essentially be a patron of my arts, right? Like, you know, you like Jerky's Mini and the fucking esports legend, you know, but like in my community, I got guys like, you know, I got guys that like as soon as I go live, they're throwing in 10 donated subs, they're throwing in, you know, 50.
Oh, there are some cool fans for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like man, like that's not wasted on me, especially like in this economy and where we all are now. And essentially, you know, there's a part of me that thinks maybe I could like just stream and chill and relax if the community want to come along for it. But the fear will always be that the fans have gaslit me so much into like just thinking everything I did was a waste of time. Like the one thing I read every day is basically you're not like you talk like you've contributed to esports. You would be nothing without esports, and you know probably like there's some tiny part of my brain that believes that and worries about that.
Because one thing I want to ask about the work you're currently doing, actually, where if people don't know, the videos that are on Richard's YouTube just come from when he streams. Like, they're not actually curated like my videos. Like, when I did, the reason why I want to bring this up, by the way, is I'm actually very impressed with whatever, like, process you've built up, because essentially you're doing, like, the videos I do, but on the fly. Like, I can tell you when I do those videos, look, I don't super script them out, but I definitely think about the structure. Sometimes, I mean, this is one of the reasons, by the way, I've never been a clout chaser. Like, if you notice, I'm actually very slow on my YouTube channel to address topical things, because guess what, I'm the sort of guy who I want to think about it a bit more. I even want like some time to pass to see if like an idea organically come, oh shit, I could do that angle, I could do that. You're reacting live to some of this stuff. I mean, some of the ones, the config stories, some of these stories, you're doing a really good job with it. But I wanted to ask actually, because like you're saying, I could see that being an avenue you could go down. I know it's sort of like some weird mixture between like entertainment and journalism. It's some weird hybrid between the two.
It's kind of like what the Tonight shows do,
right?
But just an extended version. Like kind of where I'm at right now is like the one thing that's very hard to do is to ascertain when there is a happening, like, you know, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. It's very hard to ascertain what are the facts, because the media is lying. So the media immediately lies along their partisan lines, and that's left and right. They all tell the same lies, you know. Tucker Carlson does a monologue. Elon Musk has single-handedly saved democracy by buying Twitter. Okay, don't think that's true, mate. That's as an absurd a premise as saying when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, democracy died. You know, it's like if one little frail old lady was the only thing holding the whole fucking show together, we got bigger problems we need to talk about. But you know, so and on the other side, it's like Elon Musk is the new Trump. He has probably took the money from Russia to install Trump again. It's probably like, oh, guys, for fuck's sake. And I sympathize, because not everybody is like as terminally online as me and has the same amount of free time that I do, you know, and so I watch these things happen and I'm just going in my brain, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's easily disprovable, that's bullshit, that's nonsense, that's complete partisan hackery, and I'm making notes of it as it's happening. And then obviously I've got a community of people that are very news savvy, because remember, principally I'm a journalist, so that's generally how a lot of my fans got to me in the first place. And so one of the things that I've been just doing a lot of lately is like, look, let's just cut through the bullshit. Let's just cut through the bullshit. This is exactly what happened and why, and I'm gonna give it to you straight. And if that means I've got to criticize, the right, I'll do it. And if I've got to criticize the left, whatever these two really weird nebulous terms mean, I'll do it. And unfortunately, people talk a good game about misinformation in this modern day and age, but actually what they do mean is they want the right to peddle misinformation and disinformation. They don't want to stop it entirely. That's how you can end up with like Hassan getting a fucking award for best news at the streamies, when it's like, this guy's had a number of things wrong, particularly, just forget about American politics. He waded into the Russia-Ukraine conflict and said some pretty fucking outrageously easily unprovable things. And it's like, look, I don't want to condemn the guy or cancel the guy or have him deplatformed. I've actively spoken up about that before, when he got banned for showing a documentary that had a dead body in it. And he was so fucking, because he views me as a right-wing centrist and oxymoron, he thought I must be implying something else. And I was like, no, like, there's no way anyone should get banned for that. That's what I said. But anyway, but the problem is, if you care about misinformation, you can't have your biggest political streamers just reading MSNBC. Right? Because that they get shit wrong all the time, and it's very partisan, and it's obviously partisan. So look, for me, I think the value in what I do is that I'm so much of a fucking lunatic when it comes to that journalistic code of ethics we talked about earlier. I will cut through all of the bullshit, even if it takes me to places I don't particularly want to stand. Like, I've had the unenviable position of defending Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. I know this is going to blow everyone's mind, because there's that one picture they always bring up of you, me, and Anders, like, going like, having a cheer on election day in Atlanta at my house, right? You've got to look at the television in the background. It says Hillary Clinton. Like, I think Hillary Clinton is a fucking evil piece of shit.
We were all memeing on the fact she lost. That was the joke. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Because, like, fuck Hillary Clinton. Fuck the Clintons, for fuck's sake. But fuck them all.
Of course.
But that election, America was given a choice. You can have a provably corrupt businessman who's never been a politician before, so who knows what he's going to do, or you can have somebody who's been pulling the levers of power for fucking 30 years in a variety of roles and has been provably corrupt and has used that corruption to skate accountability every time, and you can give them an even more powerful job further up the food chain. That, to me, is a no-brainer which way you vote, by the way. Yes. So had I been able to, which I absolutely wasn't, I probably would have voted for Trump in that election. Yeah, like, but the bottom line is, it's got nothing to do with him. I think he's vile. Like, if you live in Britain, by the way, you've got plenty of reasons to dislike Trump. Go look at that documentary, You've Been Trumped. Look what he did to that small Scottish community, just so that fat cunt could have a golf course. I can't stand him. I can't stand the man. He's a greasy, odious idiot. He's boorish. He's like the if you took everything wrong about the New York mindset and just turned it into like just some swollen, bloated, mega wealthy prick, that's what you get. So, but at the end, but you know what I mean. So anyway, look, back to the fucking point. I like doing neutral, factual-based reporting about these happenings, because hardly anyone else does it. And I could see, if there was a publication willing to employ me in that capacity, that is how I would spend my time. I've already had talks with the Dexerto guys. I'm like, we do entertainment, we do fucking television, we do film review, we do game review, we do influencer culture. We should fucking get into the game on politics and create a politics section, and I will head it up for you. So who knows? But yeah, for me, like I say, the battles that you fight in esports, they're often not worth the personal toll. And can you truly win anyway in the way esports is currently constructed? Probably not. It's like war games. The only way to win in esports is not to play at all. Whereas I think in politics, you can still win hearts and minds if you present facts. If you've got factual evidence and you can break the spell, there are a group of neutrals, floating voters, whatever you want to call them, people who haven't made their mind up about a topic. You can break the collective delusion that partisan politics imparts on the people that engage with it in a religious fervor. So there's probably more value in trying to do that.
This actually does make me think, though, as a last topic, about something that has been a problem in my own career. And it concerns me about the future of esports journalism, which is a lot of the things that people call scandals in my career. The sad thing in reality is this, right? The actual things that were vaguely scandalous that I've ever said, mainly just off-colour jokes or just, I would just say, poorly timed political statements. Not the statement itself. Loads of them hold up, mate. You can go back and look. But I would just say the timing was off, like you're saying. It's the scenario where everyone's going this way and then you're the guy who swerves the opposite way, so it's a big issue. Like, those aren't even the ones that annoy me, mate. The ones that annoy me is where I am actually being the devil's advocate, trying to make it like, look, it's not about the person, let's look at the principle. So you know this, when I got into that whole thing way back in the day with Moore, I don't even like Moore. Like, me and Moore were not even like fucking simpatico at the time. Like, that's not like a mate of mine where I'm going, well, he's like me and we both the same, so I'll just bloody defend you. No, in that scenario, my principle was like the devil's due. It's like, look, even the fucking devil, you have to have a reason to fucking to call him the devil. You can't just do it because you don't like him. So essentially, one thing I do worry about is, to me, that was always, I mean, maybe I'm giving away my own romantic idea of what a journalist can be. I always thought that was an essential part of journalism, is the idea that you will be the person, just like a lawyer will need to. Like, in the modern day, people even almost do believe that, Rich. Like, how could you defend this person? Because that's how our whole civilization is based off, from like fucking medieval times in Britain. It's actually like one of the best fundamental parts, that even someone we all hate and think is corrupt and scumbag gets a fair trial, gets a hearing, has someone to argue for his case, has even investigation of the facts. Doesn't matter that we all hate the guy. We have to know, did he actually do it in this way? That is one thing I do feel like, maybe I'm off based on this, I feel like that's gone. Now the vibe is, if you spoke on his behalf, it's because you agree with him and you like him. That's like the new sort of pairing, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of that, because I think a lot of the people that are up in arms, it's like, look, you have to understand, for outrage to truly work at its most efficient, in its most efficient dynamic, it has to be binary. Right? It has to be bad or good. It cannot be nuanced at all. Or because nuance immediately tempers outrage.
Yes.
Right, so you go like, oh yeah, he's bad because he said this thing. Yeah, but he said it after this thing happened, and that's why he had that particular view at that time. Oh well, actually, yeah, that is a personal tragedy that caused him to make those remarks. Perhaps being bad to him now is not actually going to help. It would actually only perhaps reinforce the negativity. What he needs is to be presented with some sober, factual evidence to make him reassess his position in a polite way. You can't remain outraged if you don't think if you think the person you're fighting truly isn't the devil. So it has to operate like that. So when you introduce elements, and I love what you're talking about, because I think advocacy for people who don't have voices is like such an important aspect of, like I say, it goes beyond journalism, it goes beyond law. It's just something you should be willing to do in a broader sense in a functional society. Like, everyone should everyone should get the input, so we have the perspective. And you see a lot of people that they've had terrible things happen to them, and nobody, or they've done something bad, but with like additional context that like diminishes what they did. And by the way, again, for people who think there's no such thing as an example, it's like the difference between a murder and a manslaughter, just to make it perfectly basic. You've still taken a life. It's completely fucking awful. But like an example for you, and everyone will have different opinions. I was watching it recently the other day. That dude, that famous video that's as old as we are, like, right, on the internet, of that guy that like literally rolls up and shoots that dude who's been arrested in the back of the head, and at the airport or whatever.
Oh, the one where it was supposedly like the father of the kid that the paedophile guy had abused.
Yeah,
like,
basically.
He comes in a
like,
cap and shoots him. It's a legendary video in it, yeah.
Yeah. And basically, like, you're like, oh, well, murder is definitely bad. And then, okay, well, this was the kid's karate instructor and he kidnapped and molested him.
Yes.
You go, okay, well, now it's vigilantism. It's still bad, right? We all agree it's still bad. The law has to play out the way it did. But then it goes, oh, and not only did he kidnap him and molest him on the night that he was found guilty for it, he'd been actually molesting him for months prior to that, and had inserted himself into the family in a very malignant way solely for the purposes of doing that. And you go, okay, well, now this child has been subject to sustained abuse. And then, you know, the defense team said the father wasn't in his right mind. And you go, okay, I probably wouldn't be in my right mind either. And then suddenly that guy didn't do a day of jail time. He didn't do a day of jail time for shooting that dude in the back of the head in front of armed police officers. So we do make concessions. We do. And so what I'm saying is, in outrage, there's no room for those concessions. So for me, yeah, I think when you advocate for someone to explain their circumstances, very often it's one of the most gracious things you can do for somebody else, especially somebody you dislike. You know, it's like I did it with Frosk. I know you and her aren't coup de la. You know, I won't ever say a bad thing about her. Like she did stuff for me and people I care about that goes way above and beyond any stupid internet beef or whatever the fuck. You know, like and when she did that rant on G4 TV, which everyone says, oh, well, that's what killed the company, go broke.
Oh, no way.
Spoiler, the company was already going to crater before Frost couldn't even opened their mouth. But I don't even think within the realm of what she was talking about, it was even that bad.
There was even valid points in there.
Yeah, like, and so, you know, and then I watched what the Chudisphere did to her. And I made a point, first of all, I didn't cover it. It would have been, easy slam dunk. Easy slam dunk. The Chudisphere in esports converging. And me being able to come in and go, you'll never guess what Froskerin said, guys. Am I right? Go broke. Like, that's it. Like, 250,000 views, no bother. Like, you know, people love that shit. And that's what the Chudisphere did. But the reality is, I don't feel that way. It would be wrong to draw attention to it when she was getting the shit kicked out of her in the digital space. It was absolutely awful, some of the things that were being said about her, well beyond the pale. And this is someone who we also know has really been held up, just like you and I, as risible figures where all abuse is welcome in the past, you know. She's had some absolutely outrageous, you know, social media abuse. So I made a point when I was on stream and someone in the chat asked me about it. I basically explained why I think she's a great person and why I act on my feelings on her rant, and how anyone that tries to put it all on that she killed G4 TV is absolutely out of their mind. You know, and like I said, we don't even really talk all that much now. But am I going to advocate for someone who I think might need it? Yeah, fucking right. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter whether you or I were enemies, mortal, sworn, digital, internet warrior, battling culture war enemies, or whether or not we were very, very dear friends. It doesn't move the dial for me. If I see somebody that is not having their story told contextually, and it's important that it is, then if no one else does it, I'll step up to the plate, whoever you are. So yeah, I mean, sadly, you just don't get, like I said, there is no grace. There is never any grace shown when the mob comes, because if they were to show you an ounce of it, they might realize what they were doing is a little bit silly and a little bit unsophisticated.
Yes. Right. At the end of this interview, do you have a final message? Do you have anyone you want to say hello to or thank?
No. You know me. I'm fucking keep my own counsel. It's been good to catch up. I mean, you know, maybe I'm wrong on some of the stuff I've said, in terms of, like, you know, looking back and all of that, but I don't think esports is in a great state right now. It interests me less and less now that it just is football Mark II, Formula One Mark II. You know, pick whichever sport you prefer the analogy for. And I also do think, like, speaking as a journalist, I think we've got issues there. You know, like, for example, the person that just won the award. Like, you know, I don't really know if Journalist of the Year is someone that does pre-screened, pre-approved interviews in a niche gaming space.
It's like they are trying to fuck with me too, isn't it? Like, because remember, they've all told me, well, you shouldn't even be nominated.
Yeah,
You don't even do journalism.
creator.
It's like, interviews make you India. You actually trying to fuck with me now. Like, you know, I've done the, whatever. Don't even start me on that.
Yeah, I made that point. I had a whole rant about it, which will be up on my YouTube channel. But I basically said, like, at the end of the day, it's like she's won Journalist of the Year for the exact same work that won a Content Creator of the Year in a year when we've explicitly told content creators you're not really a journalist. So,
yes.
But like for me, the bigger problem is just that like you could have picked almost anybody else, with the exception of Wooloo or whatever. You could have picked anybody else off that list. Like there was people like Lewis Mira at Dexerto.
Yeah.
They're interviewing people going through the fucking front line of Ukraine. You know, there was some huge stories brought by. I mean, like, you know, Jacob and Kevin are always gonna break stories. Liz Richardson, I thought, had some good bylines. She's been covering the investigation at the Overwatch League, whether it broke like monopoly laws, Monsopony laws, and so, you know, everyone on that list did great well. But I'm sorry to anyone I've missed out off the list. I'm kind of like, it's not fresh in the memory. But, you know, the bottom line is like, I think you're right. I think if you do want to do serious journalism in esports right now, it's very much not welcome, and the people that don't welcome it are the people that would benefit from it the most, and that's the fans. But they don't care because, you know, you fell off L plus ratio. As long as the fireworks display keeps churning, they can keep watching the bright lights and not think too much about, you know, who's putting the gunpowder in the pots. So yeah, it's not great, mate. It's not a great time. It's the worst I've seen esports since the very early era when we built this city. And I've reached a point where I don't really care. I'm like happy to sort of stand on the sidelines and watch its destruction, should it come, which it probably won't.
Money doesn't grow on trees, and believe it or not, just watching a video for free with the odd ad doesn't really pay the bills. So thanks to the following people for kindly supporting my work and this particular content. And those people are, of course, Ahmed Hadju, Matt Pugnaccio Racula, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Jensen Gore, Kovacevic, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Toucan, and a special thanks always goes out to Jerky's Minion, my main man. You know what? There are plenty of perks to be found on my Patreon. Like, you can find out who upcoming guests are for my reflections, interviews, and talk shows. You can ask me a question in my monthly AMA. Might get roasted if it's a bit spicy in how you phrase it. You can figure out which pieces of content I might want to do next. I often ask people which they think between certain ideas, offer suggestions. You can even take part in one of those long discussions with me about all kinds of esports, whatever's on your mind. So if any of those sound like something that takes your fancy, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description below.